Hello and welcome to the Magical Midlife Podcast, where you get a refreshing, uplifting and optimistic perspective on life in your 40s and 50s. I'm your host, Lindsay de Swart, and I'm delighted that you've joined us here today, so let's jump right in. Hey, good morning, it's Lindsay here, and today I'm flying solo, which is, I haven't done this for ages, so it feels funny because I've had so many guests. So today I want to talk about the process of change, and I also want to help you see change in a different way so that it can be, so you can get through it a bit more easily, because let's face it, change can be a bit of a bugger, especially if it's not something that we really initiated and we feel like it's been forced on us. So the funny thing about change is of course we're seeing it every day all around the world. You may well be experiencing it. And if you're not experiencing it like the heat of it right now, you may be just past it or just coming into the next phase. So isn't that good news to know about? So today I'm going to talk about the sort of almost like the theory of change and what happens, because it does go through a cycle. And as I posted yesterday on social media, we are at the mercy of cycles and seasons. And sometimes they work for us, but there are cycles and seasons. And when we can kind of go with the flow of those, things become a little easier to understand. And also you'll know that you're supported. Because one thing that I've really always believed, but also it's been really strengthened since starting this podcast, is how well supported we are, especially as a community of midlife women. We are so well supported when we remember to ask for help. And we're so used to coping on our own that sometimes we actually forget how many people are out there going through exactly what we're going through. And if they might not be in the same phase as we're currently going through, as I say, they've just been through it, or they certainly know ways to get through it. So that's what I really want to share with you today, is the process of change and what to expect. It's a bit like that book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. This is a bit like what to expect when you're going through, midlife fallout, and how it can get better on the other side. Let's start by looking at an everyday situation which happens to us all, whereby you are on a plateau. And sometimes, if you are in the further along in the midst of change, you might be looking at the plateau going, oh my goodness, that was like so easy. I love being on that plateau. But when you're on the plateau, if you're on the plateau for too long, and I can't tell you what too long is because it's different for all of us, when you're on the plateau, you get to a stage where you become dissatisfied. And as you become dissatisfied, you start to get a bit frustrated and a little bit, let's say you're looking ahead, you're creating some new vision for your future, or you think what someone else has got looks like the perfect life. Or if you had a different house, it would be better, a different relationship, different finances, then things would be better. So the difference is, how long do you allow yourself to sit on that plateau, feeling like you don't want to be on that plateau anymore because you want to be somewhere different? And then at what stage do you decide that the plateau is unbearable and you can't stay there any longer, and you just know that something has to happen? And sometimes that's self-initiated, and sometimes it actually happens to you, or that's what it feels like. Chances are it happens for you, but very often it feels like it happens to you. So this is what it looks like. So you've got this nice plateau. I wish you could see my hands now because I'm using my hands as well. You've got this nice flat plateau, which is nice and flat to a point where it's just flat. It's not even nice and flat anymore. And then you get this, let's say, crisis point. And crisis point is when you realize that you actually can't stay on here any longer. It's just unbearable, and you're going to go crazy if you stay here. So that's when, of course, you're looking on the other side. Let's say a valley. You're looking on the other side of the valley, and you're like, that's where it's all going to be perfect. But what you don't realize as you're right on this sort of this precipice is you don't realize that you've actually got to get through the valley. And the valley is the really tricky part. Because the valley is when you have to learn to let things fall away. Some things fall away really naturally. Some things fall away with drama. And that's pretty hard to deal with, because you get sucked into that whole spiral of the drama and you forget to look up to go, oh yeah, I'm heading to that other side where the grass is greener. Oh yeah, completely forgot to look there. So as you go down that precipice, very often this is where you pick up skills like learning to ask for help, or finding the silence and actually listening to your own guidance, which is where things like, meditation and yoga come in really useful. Or even you take on things like dietary supplements or whatever. But actually that normally comes a little bit later because you're more keen to climb your way back up to where the grass is greener. And right now you may well still be on this slippery slope, which is actually the shit hits the fan, everything is falling away. And this is the toughest part of change. It's also the hardest bit to see from when you're, on that plateau position. And it's also the bit that we fear the most, but it's necessary. So my recommendation of how to make this better is to allow it to fall away as quickly as possible. So being really still, giving yourself space, looking after your health allows all of this to fall away and for the shell to break so that something new can be born. Anyway, so you get down to the bottom of this valley, and the valley is, it's a pretty deep, dark place, and getting down to the bottom of that valley feels so uncomfortable. And this is when people might say, it was the dark night of the soul, or, it was the worst day of my life, or whatever it might be, because that's how it feels. It feels really bad. Anyway, the good thing is, from there, it's an uphill climb, which might not sound so fantastic, but the fact is, it means you've reached the lowest point and now you're on your way back up. So what's characteristic of reaching that point is that this is where the growing starts. Okay, this is where the real development happens in changing who you are as a person. So on this upward climb, this is where you find new resources. You maybe bring on the supplements because you need some additional, nutrition support. You might meet new people on the way, because when you're open to change, don't you just find that people just kind of arrive and you meet people by circumstance that can really help you along the way? You might find you look for resourceful books, courses, all of the things that help you grow so that you can, because you've outgrown where you were anyway. And in order to get to this next phase where the grass is greener, you have to become a different person, actually. And even if it's not a different person of who you are in your heart and soul, there are some new lessons that need to be learned. So things like learning forgiveness, learning some new ways of maybe managing your time or dealing with your health. All of these things are going to help you to become that, let's say, higher version of yourself than you were before. And this was what you always wanted. You just possibly didn't want the mucky bit in the middle, this valley that you had to go through. So when you're climbing this steep, can be steep, it can be long and slow, and I'm not sure which is better, actually. I guess you get to choose. When you're climbing up that slope, becoming the new person that you are, that's when it's the best time to call for help. When you're falling down that slope, that's actually a fairly lonely business. And really asking for help at that stage, although it may feel like it's the good idea, that help is not going to stick around for some reason, for whatever reason. But when you're on this upward slope, developing who you are becoming as a person, that's when help is really useful. And it's very, maybe you connect with some old friends, or you connect with some new friends, or new teachers, new authors, but you are building almost like a new toolkit to get you to the next plateau in life. And then finally, you feel like your feet have touched the ground again. You are back on solid ground, and you might be in a new house or in a new location or in a new relationship, or in a new financial state, but that's when you feel that you're back on a plateau. And that was the plateau that you always wanted, that looked so beautiful. And as you look back, if you like turn around and look back across the valley, and then you go, wow, I didn't enjoy the experience, but I wouldn't have changed it because I love where I am right now. And you can stay on that plateau for as long as it feels comfortable. And then, guess what? The whole thing's going to happen again and again and again, because that's how we grow. That's how we change. It's how we evolve. So you might be able to identify where you are on that little chart. And wherever you are on that chart, I just want you to know that there is always support available. You are never in this alone, and you have been through it before and you've worked your way out. And really, part of that learning is learning what resources you needed along the way to make that fall easier, to make it less uncomfortable, and so you can grow into the new person and that new lifestyle that you want. You can grow much more easily so that you get to that new plateau. So the tools that are really useful along the way, and I want to share these with you because they're never difficult. We just forget to look out for them when we really need them. So when you are in that plateau, the first initial plateau, just be grateful for where you are, because all the time that life is calm, just like they say, if you're going through hell, just keep going. This too shall pass. That's another one I've been reminded of recently. This too shall pass, and it will. And that happens in the good times and the bad times. Know that nothing is permanent. So when you're on that plateau, you will get to the stage, and as soon as things start becoming troublesome, uncomfortable, know that change is ahead. And know that chances are it's going to be for the better. We always think it's going to be for the worse, and I just don't know why. We hope it's for the best, but we have this kind of deep-rooted fear that it's going to be worse. Now, what I can guarantee is there will be a time when it's uncomfortable and it may feel worse, but it's only because you're growing into a new version of yourself and it's leading to something better. So please hold out that hope. So optimism is actually one of the skills that you can hold through all of this. And certainly the belief of hope and having hope has saved so many people because they have known that there is something better ahead. So just keep reminding yourself of that, whether you need to journal it or get a tattoo of it even. Know that better times will lie ahead. Now, I know it feels really difficult to say that given the current situation we're in the world, but also know that there is fallout for a reason. It's just on a global scale, and nobody can predict how long that's going to last for. However, the only thing that you can control, obviously, is how you deal with your change and the resources that you can bring in. And so long as you are dealing with what you can deal with, then you are in a far more resourceful place to help other people along the way too. On the slope, it's really useful to have things like meditation, to have things like being okay to cancel stuff so that you've got the space if you need it, to be okay with your emotions, to be able to express your emotions, anger, sadness, guilt, fear. You'll experience all of those on the way down because that's their favourite place to hang out. And then when you get to the bottom, give yourself breathing space, because when you give yourself that space, that's actually where the magic happens, and that's where you find peace. And when you've found that place of peace, that's when things start to turn around. They start to take a turn for the better, not necessarily a turn for the easier, but a turn for the better. And that's when you can start climbing your way back up. And as you climb your way back up, the resources that are really helpful are to call on friends or teachers or family, but new resources for help, whether it's books, whether it's courses, whether it's getting a mentor, a coach. That's when they're really useful. And then also taking on new skills, whether that's managing money or new health things or even, career change. You need to up your skill level. And that will feel like, well, it's immensely empowering, but may also feel like it's really hard work. So self-care, self-nurturing, self-love really comes into its own at that stage. And then as you keep growing with all of these new skills, and there's no saying how long that lasts, but as you keep growing, at some stage you will find this new normal. Unfortunately, new normal now is associated with, life after COVID, but I don't know that anybody actually knows what a new normal is now. So you have to find your own new normal. And when you find your own new normal, that means you're at the next plateau. And there you can keep doing the self-care routines that you were doing in the hope that this plateau is going to be a higher standard of living, a higher level of being than you were in your last plateau. And also know that you're a little bit more in tune with the signs, so that when you get those feelings of, I've grown out of this, or frustration, those feelings are easier to listen to, they're easier to hear, so that when you next go through that need to change, it doesn't have to be quite so big, so dramatic, and so exhausting. It can be more of a small dip rather than a honking great valley, because hopefully within your life there aren't too many of the really honking great valleys that you've got to fall down into and climb out of, because that's quite hard work. I think it's safe to say. So, yeah, the process of change. And it's also, let's face it, it's the seasons. The seasons are the same thing, except, of course, the plateaus, every season has a plateau. And it can be going along quite nicely, and then there's a change of season, and then we enjoy that season, and then there's a change of season, and we enjoy that season, hopefully enjoy the season, and then a change of season. So all of these are cycles, and all of this is going with the natural rhythm of who we are. And the reason that I'm saying that is with the intention that it helps you to realize that whatever you're going through is actually perfect as it is. And if you're in that downward part, I know it's really difficult to hear that because it feels so damned uncomfortable. But please know that it is perfect just as it is. Okay, so on that slope upwards, you can pick up resources on your way. And there are so many teachers out there that can help you. And depending on what slope you're climbing will depend on what resources you pull on. However, because I've noticed there's so much of this going on at the moment, I've created a 6-week container. And this 6-week container, depending on where you are on this cycle of change, but if you know that you are starting on the uphill, or you know that you're standing on the plateau and that there's a grass is always greener plateau over there and you need support to get over to the next side, I want to offer you the support over the next 6 weeks. And so I have created a 6-week course, which is called the Spring Revolution. And the Spring Revolution allows us to walk this path together and allows me to hold the possibility for you finding that grass is always greener, but finding it in a way that is so true to who you are and so speaks to supporting you growing in ways that you want but possibly couldn't see for yourself. But I've seen it so many times with people that I work with, and it's a beautiful thing to see and to witness. It's a beautiful thing to witness, but when you're going through it, you almost need somebody there to kind of hold your hand through it, to show you and to keep reminding you that you can actually do this, and it's possible to raise that next plateau to something really high because of how brave you've been in the process. So I would dearly love to support you in that 6 weeks container, and it starts on March 23rd and we go through all the way till the end of April. So if there's something that's been brewing for you, there is something that you know needs to unravel before it could grow into something better, that is precisely what the Spring Revolution can help you with. That is precisely what the Spring Revolution can help you with. So if this is something that you think resonates with you, please just message me, and you can reach me either through Facebook or through Instagram or emailing me directly, and just let me know that this is something that you need. And nobody else really needs to know what you're going through, the challenge that you're going through, but please know that I want to offer this support because I've seen this change cycle so many times, and just know that you're not alone. Okay, today's episode is shorter than normal, so I wish you the happiest of days. If you think this is going to be helpful for somebody you know, please share this, especially if they're going through change right now, because they need to know that there is a way out of this, absolutely. And they're going to find a new plateau, and hopefully with what they've heard on this episode today, and know that there is something better over the hill. Okay. So thank you for listening today. I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and I really look forward to seeing you in the comments. Thank you so much for listening. So grateful for you spending this time with me, and I will see you in the next episode. What did you think of the show today? If you've enjoyed it, please leave a review on whatever podcast platform that you're listening on. Also, you can come and join us at the Facebook group for The Magical Midlife. And on Instagram, if you're on Instagram, I'm under Lindsay de Swart, where you will find the podcast being released there every Wednesday. I really look forward to seeing you there and hearing your comments and any questions. And please come over to the Instagram account or to the Facebook group, where you will find downloads and free gifts to help you lead your most magical midlife. See you there.